Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. I had a fantastic trip to Mexico City, but it is great to be back in the studio, and thank you all for watching the rundown while I was on the literal run through Mexico. That was totally cool, and I will talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in the show. We've got an awesome episode for you today of EP Live, which we film live on location at the VFS Cafe at 390 West Hastings here in Vancouver, BC, and it is a very cool venue, and it's great to see everybody here. Thanks for coming down, you guys. We've got a great guest. His name is Adrian Talens, and he is a musician and works on sound effects and sound design in the video game industry, in animation. He's making music videos. He's doing live concerts. We've got a lot of things to talk about, including VR, and VR is a big deal in today's rundown, which we're going to get to right now. It's dedicated to Caleb Gafford, who says, "I'm so happy I found this channel. I'm with this and the Attack channel." He's finding all of his old Tech TV and G4 favorites out there. Thank you so much for watching, Caleb. Let's get started with your rundown. It looks like the Nintendo Switch might be borrowing an idea from the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. Nintendo is rumored to be working on not one, but two new versions of the Switch. No official announcements have been made, but a new report in the Wall Street Journal has the details from unnamed sources at manufacturing companies. The first new Switch is a more powerful Pro version of the system aimed at hardcore gamers, which will offer better visuals than the existing version. The second new model is aimed at more casual players and will have a cheaper price by eliminating features like the controller vibration. The Journal also claims that Nintendo hopes this cheaper model will serve as a replacement for the outgoing 3DS. If the reports are true, the two new versions of the Switch could be hitting stores as early as this summer. If that's the case, expect an official announcement soon. Now, there's been a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation, a lot of YouTube videos made about these particular Switch models that we've been guessing about for a long time now. I think it would be appropriate for Nintendo to take the plunge and give us some choices with our Switch options out there. And I'm not just talking about peripherals. I think it would be amazing if there was a little bit more horsepower in the Switch, and that would attract a lot of sort of the top-tier game developers to the platform. They wouldn't feel hampered by any sort of hardware limitations or anything like that. But of course, then that brings in a whole kind of a skew confusion out there, because suddenly games would work on the more powerful Switch, but not on the sort of Mama Bear Switch, and then the Baby Bear Switch would just be sitting there going, "I can't even rumble anymore." But I think if Nintendo is trying to figure out a way to, quietly lay to rest the 3DS and kind of transfer over to a machine that can do the hybrid portable and sitting at home playing on the television mode, I think they need to sort of offer this machine at various price points. I have heard from parents and consumers out there that are really fascinated by the Switch, but they recognize that it's a pretty hefty investment as it currently sits right now. You've got to pay for the core machine, and you've got to get extra controllers, and you've got to get maybe another dock or something like that if you want it in a couple rooms. So it starts to add up a little bit. So I think it would be wise for Nintendo to offer some price variety out there and some hardware variety. I want to know what you guys think. Let us know in the chat. We'll have Let's Play and Chat a little bit later on. I think this is a hot topic, but we have many more hot topics to get to, including, after years of rumors, Apple has finally announced their streaming service to take on rivals like Netflix and Hulu. It's called Apple TV Plus and will launch with more than 25 original shows. The thing that Apple is hoping will distinguish this from other streaming platforms is all the talent that they're partnering with. Heavyweights like Steven Spielberg, J.J. Abrams, Jennifer Aniston, and even Oprah. The service will be available through a new version of the existing Apple TV app and is coming to not just Apple devices, but devices from rivals like Amazon and Roku, as well as smart TVs from Samsung, Sony, and others. So you don't need to have an Apple gadget to get it. That launches this fall. Along with Apple TV Plus, Apple also announced a revamped Apple News service and their own credit card called Apple Card. Finally, for gamers, they announced Apple Arcade, a service for mobile games that will give access to more than 100 games for a flat monthly subscription fee. All the games will be iOS exclusives, but they'll probably also play on the Apple TV devices as well. And Apple hopes that this will make it easier for people to access and help indie developers find a larger audience. And the thing that I really like about this Apple Arcade is that it sort of moves Apple into this position of helping people that want to put titles out there that cost money, not just the free-to-play titles out there, which honestly can be a bit of a risk. You basically buy your audience, and then you can kind of figure out a way to kind of get that monthly income if you play your cards right. But it is a very big risk, and we see a lot of developers in the free-to-play business end up sort of struggling and sort of up against the 8 ball right out of the gate if they don't have a lot of forward momentum and upward momentum based on launching these titles immediately. The layoffs start coming, and it starts to become a real financial pinch for people. Meanwhile, the people that have been trying to sell their games have had a really tough time competing with all of these free-to-play varietals that exist in mobile. And so suddenly there's a new option for those developers out there, and suddenly there's a premium kind of product in the game space that Apple is getting behind, and I think that's fantastic. Just like I think it's exciting that Google is starting to recognize that we can grow the audience for games in some pretty massive ways. Apple has a huge install base. They have tons and tons of customers out there already, millions, hundreds of millions of customers, and I think that this is going to, open the doors to people that have games to sell to find a new revenue avenue. And I think Apple's going to be pretty aggressive with the cost to get the subscription for Apple Arcade, and I think there's going to be some pretty damn exciting games on that platform because the Apple iOS devices and Apple TV and however they're iterating on all of this stuff are surprisingly capable and surprisingly powerful. So I'm stoked about that. Also stoked to see what all of this talent that Apple is spending money on is going to produce for us. Hopefully we'll start to see some really fantastic shows. We've already seen some breakout hits in streaming services. The Expanse got picked up by Amazon, which I love. I was a huge fan of the Jack Ryan show. I thought the Umbrella Academy was fantastic. Star Trek Discovery is doing some killer business for CBS All Access. So it makes sense that Apple is starting to say, well, look, we need to break apart from just selling people hardware, as we're seeing the dips in people picking up new iPhones. We need to find new ways to engage customers, and I think services is what they're going to be all about. And honestly, that credit card idea kind of taps into all of that. It's a bit scary to think about handing over all of your financial data to a massive conglomerate like Apple, but they make a pretty compelling case, with the no fees and no late fees and no annual fees. I think it's going to be a big hit for these guys. All right, well, with the PS4 nearing the end of its lifespan, it looks like Sony is shifting its focus to the PlayStation VR. Earlier today, Sony held their first State of Play live stream, taking a page out of Nintendo's book. Basically, their version of a Nintendo Direct presentation where they made several announcements, mostly about VR. No Man's Sky is getting VR support for the first time on the PlayStation VR, and the horror game Five Nights at Freddy's is getting a VR spin-off called Five Nights at Freddy's VR. Help Wanted. The most surprising announcement is an all-new game called Marvel's The most surprising announcement is an all-new game called Marvel's Ironman Vr, where players take the role of the iconic superhero, and that's coming to the PlayStation VR. This follows Sony's successful partnership with Marvel and the recent Spider-Man game from Insomniac, so the bar is set very high. All these new VR games come out later this year, and I think that this is very smart for Sony to do. I think that the PlayStation 5 is definitely going to have a huge VR component, and all of this software will probably sit just fine and work just fine right out of the gate on the PlayStation VR and whatever its new headset device is going to be. And presumably it's going to be a 4K capable display, and these games are going to up-res beautifully. I'm very excited for our friend Ryan Payton, who we worked on the Metal Gear Solid 4 making of extensively with, and worked on some behind-the-scenes stuff on Republic that Camouflage worked on. He runs the studio called Camouflage, which is working on the Iron Man VR game. I think Iron Man is a perfect hero and a perfect character to sort of get us into the VR space because of all of the incredible abilities that the character has. Psyched to play that, but even more psyched to have Ryan Payton in the show here, and we can get into that and talk to him a little bit about developing this and working with Marvel and working with Sony. So I've reached out to Ryan, and hopefully he'll be a guest on EP Live soon.